This is part 1 to my supportive materials. In this short video essay, I will be exploring the research and context to the wallpaper I created as part of my degree show. The wallpaper will be discussed as a standalone artwork as well as part of the overall installation. The process of my art making will be made clear through the contextual research I will be discussing. The ever-flowing production of artwork has catalyzed by the heavy amount of research I conducted. The epicenter of the wall is a deep blood red, which fades to the aged paper surrounding it. The pages stained with this deep pigment are that of Oscar Wilde's work, before flowing into Stoker's Dracula, then Stephenie Meyer's New Moon. The look of a wound bleeding from the wall has a much more significant meaning behind it, rather than its visually stimulating appearance. In 1895, Oscar Wilde stood trial for homosexuality and sodomy, to which he was found guilty for gross indecency and sentenced to 2 years hard labour. In prison, his health massively declined and died 3 years later in Paris. At the early times of mass media, the coverage and frenzy over the trial was indeed wild. Such a media circus led itself to the rising number of queer men being prosecuted. Every aspect to male social behaviour developed a nervous edge to it in fear of being misread as sexual interaction. But what does this have to do with vampires? David Scull writes in his book, In the Blood, the untold story of Bram Stoker, the man who wrote Dracula. Quote, Stoker thrived in a male-dominated world, which was passive homosociability allowed more intimate male connections to hide in plain sight, at least until the downfall of Oscar Wilde, when the prematures of male sexuality become culturally electrified. At Trinity College Dublin, Stoker and Wilde became acquaintances, having that of a similar upbringing and both interested in theatre. Stoker was a rather private man, but from 1895 onwards we hardly know anything about him. From his more public letters to his close gay friend Walt Whitman, to a man who went into a period of silence. It is speculation to whether Wilde's trial and his seclusion is related, but it is hard not to separate the two since they were friends. The trial showed the consequences of queer relationships, so many gay men turned outwardly homophobic and private to protect themselves from the fatal fate Wilde had. 2 years into his silence, Stoker produced Dracula. When it is clear that Dracula is a representative of many things that Stoker feared, one being queerness and its threat to society, Jonathan Harker and his confused attraction towards the Count, whilst in his castle prison, are representative of Stoker himself. It is certainly part of his monstrification of the queerness, or otherwise the otherness, and is often a reflection of the self. Stoker was plagued with ill health as a child, and this certainly affected his opinion of himself, referring to his frame and his features as large and misshapen. Why it visually was curated by myself to look like this was due to this one piece of artwork. I was testing the boundaries of pigment and edible fake blood solutions. I wanted to know how it stained, so on this piece of paper from this book I had taken from a charity shop, I decided to drip some of this fake blood onto it. This became such a defining imagery within my work. It became so surreal, this sort of bloody chamber-looking painting of a white sheet with this almost burning blood seeping through the fabric and onto the page. And once I put it up amongst my other work, it became a catalyst to how I was going to display my work and also how to visually tell the story of the Oscar Wilde trial and the transition to every other type of vampire media I have been consuming over the past year.